Hello, everyone. Welcome to Church Online. I have a funny hat on today because I'm trying to portray a biblical character, trying to bring the gospel miracles to life. These events happen to real people in real time, and we hope we could bring it to life for you today. I'm going to be portraying the rich nobleman whose son was sick, found in the 4th chapter of John's Gospel. So imagine, if you would, the year 40 AD. Okay? Close your eyes. Welcome back. Hi, everybody. I'd like to share with you today how it came about that I became a follower of the way. That's how we like to refer to ourselves. You might know us as Christians. But the year was 3788, according to our Jewish calendar. And for me personally, life was good. My older cousin, older by 4 days, I like to kid him, old man, Herod Antipas, was tetrarch of Galilee. That's a term we use for governor. And he gave me an official position as well. Oh, it came with all the perks of office, man. It was a great job that required very little and paid really well. People knew my name. I had power and prestige. We're Jewish, as you might have guessed. Edomites, actually, from the tribe of Edom. And we live in an occupied country, but Rome allows us to self-govern. As long as the taxes keep coming in, they're happy with it all. We're not religious, though, like some Jews are. It seemed to me like the God of Israel was perpetually angry with his people. There was this endless list of rules we had to keep. There was sacrifices at the prescribed times. There was ceremonial washing and ritual cleansing. It was incredible what they would expect us to do. And that wouldn't be bad enough. If that wasn't enough, I think the straw that broke the camel's back for me is the people that seem to keep the rules the best were the people I like to hang around with the least. So they could keep all that religious nonsense. We would keep the religious feast days just to be social. But whatever I was doing, life was good. And God was off my back. We lived in a little town, Kfar Nahum. Nahum is a man's name, means pleasant, Kfar town. Oh, that's the Hebrew name, means pleasant town. The Gentile name, the Greek name, is Capernaum. Maybe you've heard of that. It was a little town right on the northern tip of the Sea of Galilee, right by the Jordan River. Oh, and it was a neat little spot. It was a town about 1,500, right on the Sea of Galilee, so fishing was a major industry. But there was also a trade route from Damascus that came through there, an attack station, hence the need for an official presence there. But it was a beautiful town. Because all the travelers, we had some really neat shops and cafes and just wonderful spots to visit that were available to us residents. 1,500 people in a town. We had some really neat stuff for a town that size. There was springs there in the hills that they had diverted, and there was ponds and fountains and palm trees. It was an oasis of sorts. Somebody did the calculations, and we were 450 feet below sea level. So it was always tempered and nice there. The wind would blow down and out of the Golan in the morning to cool us off, and then in the afternoon the breeze would blow across the Sea of Galilee. So even though we're 450 cubits below sea level, it wasn't hot and miserable like down in the Dead Sea. It was just a nice little spot. But I think any town would be beautiful if my family was there. I have a lovely wife who I adore and 4 wonderful kids. Back in '88, the oldest was 16, and he was a delightful young man. I just loved visiting with him and hanging out with him and just enjoying his company. He was really a handsome dude, too. He resembled his mom in that regard. Then we had 2 twin boys who were 14 in '88. They were a couple years behind our oldest. You could guess our house was pretty wild there for a few years. We had 3 toddlers, but they had transitioned out of adolescence now, and they were trained as delightful young men as well. And we thought we were done for 10 years and no more children. And then surprise, our little prince was born. I spoiled him rotten, I'm sure. Because there was such a gap in age between the twins and the baby, oh, we treated him more like a grandkid than a son. He would go with me everywhere. My wife said he was our dessert baby. Asner, we called him. Oh, his name means happy and blessed. Isn't that cool? That captured our life at that time. Happy and blessed. Do you ever have this perfect image in your mind? Someplace you would like to go for your happy place in your thoughts? I remember it was the month of April, and it was just a beautiful day. We had a wonderful dinner, enjoyed my family immensely, the conversation around the table, and it was getting on into dusk, and I took a cup of wine up to our rooftop terrace to enjoy the view. The sun was dancing off the sea in little sparkles like it does just before it goes down. The sky was turning this brilliant turquoise blue with little orange and pink ribbons of clouds. Oh, it was just perfect. I remember thinking to myself, life couldn't get any better than this. Ironic that in a few short hours, my world was going to be rocked to the core. But I went to bed with this wonderful image in my brain. Sometime in the middle of the night, probably closer to dawn, oh man, we were startled awake by screams from my younger son's room. We rushed in there, and I threw back the sheet thinking he was being bitten or something. He was writhing in pain. Oh, what a mess. He had soiled his sheets. He was vomiting. He was writhing in pain, and he was burning up with fever. I scooped him up in my arms and cleaned him off a little bit, and then went out to the terrace to get a better look and see what was going on. Oh, he was burning up with fever, and like I said, writhing in pain. I put coal rags on his chest and head, trying to cool him off and clean him up a little, and held him till morning when we sent for the doctor. The doctor came and said, just continue what I was doing and try and get some fluid in him. And I did that all that day, all the next night. And by the morning of the next day, his fever still raged, but he was unresponsive. I could barely feel his respirations on my cheek when I put my face close. I knew we were losing him. I know many of you parents have experienced this, the death of one of your children, or the possible death of one of your children. You would do anything to make them well, anything you could to heal them. I was desperate. I'll never forget the pleading look in my wife. Here was a rich, powerful man. Can I do something? But there was nothing I could do. There was nothing I could do. I went outside to the terrace to be alone. I didn't want anybody to see me break down. It might have been the first time in my life that I ever wished I was religious. And at least I could go offer a sacrifice, pay somebody, do something. I was crying in my head in my hands. I mumbled a prayer. Adonai, please help us. About that time, I felt a little hand on my arm. It was my servant girl. She said she had a friend that was a servant in Cana. And she was serving at a wedding there. And this man had made wine out of water. And not just a little cup of wine. He made 150 gallons of wine. Perhaps if this man could do that, perhaps he could heal my son. I was desperate. I was ready to try anything. I had my horse saddled and brought around to the front and took off at a dead run for Cana. A couple miles in, I realized I was going to kill my horse if I continued this pace. It's 20 miles to Cana, all uphill, with only one water stop along the way that I knew of. So we slowed to a fast walk, and we still got there a little after midday. I started asking around for this, if anybody knew this miracle worker who turned water into wine. Come to find out, he was a carpenter by the name of Jesus who worked this wonderful miracle. I asked if he was in town, if he lived there. He said, no, he didn't live there, but as luck or providence would have it, he was there. I I asked them where, and they didn't know for sure, but they knew he was in town. I started searching all the usual places, the synagogue and the town square, any place that people might gather. I finally found him on the edge of town, teaching by the well under a grove of olive trees. There was probably 25 or 30 people standing around listening to him. I dismounted and I just threw my reins into the hands of a man standing towards the back of the crowd, and I pushed my way to the front. I said, "Sir, please come with me down to Capernaum and heal my son." I thought he would respect my position, but there was no hint of that in his voice. He said, "You people will never believe unless you see signs and wonders." I had no idea what he was talking about. Believe what? So I repeated my request. "Please come before my child dies." And his look softened, and I could see compassion in his face. He could see the pain I was in, and he just said, "Go, your child will live." He said it just like that. Just like that. And I knew in my heart of hearts that he had just healed my son. Isn't that crazy? What power. Man, I went back and retrieved my horse, but then I stood at the back of the crowd and listened to him teach. He was teaching about the kingdom of heaven and about God. He referred to God as this loving Father. Wow, that was so different than anything I'd ever heard before. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. God's not angry with us. All my life I've been trying to avoid a God, stay out of his way so as not to be smitten. But he's a Father who loves us. How about that? I'm a father. I would do anything for my kids. I want to give them stuff. I don't want them to give me stuff. What could they give me that they didn't buy with my own money anyhow? I would be none the richer for anything they gave me. But the only thing I really want from them is relationship. Could that be all God wants from us as well? A relationship with us as kids? How cool is that? Jesus went on to teach. He said, sin was the sickness that we all suffered from. And it was going to kill us and separate us for all eternity from God. But he came to heal that sickness. I wonder if healing my son was a sign of his healing power. And he was going to heal this sin sickness as well. Man, that's so much to think about. He was done teaching and he blessed the crowd and dismissed us. Oh, but it was too late to travel home now. So I found an out-of-the-way spot and unsaddled my horse and used that for a backrest. I don't know about you guys, but when I have so much on my mind, so much to think about, I just kiss sleep goodbye. I was thinking all of these things, trying to put all the pieces together of the puzzle. I remember hearing about John the Baptist teaching. My cousin hated the Baptist because he called him out for taking my Uncle Philip's wife. But nonetheless, he talked about a Messiah that was coming. And I had enough religious training to know that the Messiah was going to restore all things. Wow. Could this Jesus be the Messiah? I think maybe so. Maybe that some of the pieces were starting to fit together. I wrestled there all night, and finally it was dawn, and I got up and saddled my horse again, and kind of dilly-dallied in town, hoping that I could catch Jesus teaching again. I had some questions I would love to ask him, but I guess he was done teaching there for the day, and I never saw any sign of him. So I got a couple baked eggs and some dried figs for breakfast and started the long ride home. 20 miles with a lot on my mind, a lot to think about. I was getting close to town, to Capernaum, and I saw this group of people coming out of town, no big deal. I recognized them. They're all my servants. The little servant gal that had told me about Jesus, she was grinning from ear to ear. She was practically skipping and bouncing up and down. She was so excited. My little prince was completely well, asking for his daddy. I asked when it happened, and she said 1 o'clock yesterday. And I knew that was the exact time that Jesus said my son would live. That was when his fever broke. What power? Power to heal long distance. He still has power to heal long distance. He healed my heart long distance. He healed all my household. We're all his followers now. I walked back into town, dismounted and walked back into town with my servants, sharing what I learned. I didn't have all the answers yet, of course. I didn't even know all the questions yet, but I did share what I knew. And I thanked my little servant girl for taking a risk and disturbing me while I was in such grief and telling me about Jesus. If she hadn't told me about him, we might have never come to be his followers. We might have never had my son healed. So I thanked her and thanked her all the way home. I shared with them about how Jesus came to restore all things, to make all things new. Faith comes from hearing, but when we hear, we have to obey. Faith grows stronger as we obey. Somebody told me faith is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it grows. Oh man, God gives it freely though. We don't have to kind of coerce it out of him. He gives us freely his faith. Sometimes I think he brings us to our knees, so we'll look up. Messiah was going to restore all things. Man, he was healing long distance. He did come to Capernaum. In fact, he kind of made his home base. They told me his hometown refused to recognize him. What a shame for them, huh? Maybe that was what he was referring to when he said, you people never believe unless you see signs and wonders. They were following him around for the show, but they had no intent of ever becoming his followers. I don't know all the answers, but I know Jesus healed my son. And Jesus' words hold the words of life. He came to town and set it up as his kind of home base. Some of his closest followers were from Capernaum. Simon, who he later called Peter, Andrew, James, his brother John, even one of my employees, one of my tax guys, Matthew, became one of his disciples. Is that neat? I would sneak out and listen to him every chance I got. He would be teaching in the synagogues. And he would teach not like our teachers of the law taught, but he taught with authority. One of my favorite sermons, if I had to pick a favorite, was the time he taught on the greatest commandment. All us Jewish kids knew the Shema, the Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one. We're to love the Lord our God with all of our heart. But he went on, with all our soul, mind, strength, all of our being, basically. We're to love God with all of our being. And then he went on, we're to love our neighbor as ourselves. That neat? It's not a list of thou shalt nots, but thou shalt love. I don't know about you parents, but if you want to endear yourself to me, the nicest thing you could do is love my kids. Yep, pretty cool. Our Father wants us to grow and thrive, and it's easy to love him because he first loved us. I was a man of power. I respected power in others. On that day, I saw power. He spoke, and sickness obeyed. Isn't that crazy? Sickness obeyed. Wow. Power that just spoke. Jesus, you are mighty to save. You are powerful. Power over sin, over death. Thank you for saving us. Thank you for loving us. Love you guys. Have a great week.